So, I was lucky enough to land an interview with a member of the Blackmagic design team. I got to ask a couple of questions that I'm commonly asked, as well as a couple of questions I had of my own. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, today's interview is with a gentleman by the name of Bob Cornelia. He was actually with DaVinci Resolve before Blackmagic was a part of it. It's actually easier if he just explains.
Yeah, so I started with DaVinci as the company before Blackmagic bought it, 2005, and then in 2009, Blackmagic bought them. And as I always say, I went from being the youngest guy at DaVinci to the oldest guy at Blackmagic in one weekend. So here we are. Um, and it's amazing because it's almost 10 years now that Blackmagic has taken it. And to be honest with you, when at the time of the sale, so 10 years ago, if there were 100 or 200 people worldwide that knew how to run a Resolve, I would say that was a lot. And then today we have millions, which is pretty cool.
So, my first question is, how is Blackmagic able to provide DaVinci Resolve for free?
Well, right. As I always say, we went from $500,000 turnkey systems to free software, but somehow we're making it up in volume. And that's not totally untrue in the sense that while it's free or it comes with the cameras and things like that, the software itself sort of introduces some people to Blackmagic in general. And we sell a lot of hardware on the back end of that software. So we sell control panels, we sell, a variety of I/O devices so that people can get video in and out of laptops or PCs or workstations, anything. So there's a lot of hardware that goes along with it. People buy our monitoring, our scopes, our ultrascopes, smart scope, duos, things like that. So there's a lot of hardware that goes with it. And then the cameras actually have dragged a lot of people that were just using the software and then started to get interested in the cameras, and then the workflow of the cameras gets more people in it, and more people tend to, if they are using the free version for a while, they realize there are some tools that you might want to use in the studio version, and for $295, which it is now, it's a good deal.
And I completely understand what Bob's saying there. For me, it was I was using Speed Grade, was discontinued, and then I was looking for another coloring tool, and then I seen DaVinci Resolve. It's free. Hey, let's try it. From there, I ended up diving really into DaVinci Resolve and then getting Studio. So it kind of makes sense. It's nice when you don't have 5-day or 15-day trial, 30-day trial, whatever it is, and then they hit you with a paywall. So I guess the one thing that I really don't like that I kind of see online is when I initially asked this question, it was kind of a long-winded question. And then when I re-recorded everything, I did a terrible job of explaining the question. When I went from the free version to the studio version, I seen a huge improvement. Online, when you see the comparisons with DaVinci Resolve versus the competitor, it's normally the paid version of the competitor's software. And for DaVinci Resolve, you don't know if it's the free version or the studio version. Competitors, name their product completely, something completely different, so that online when you're trying to search something, you don't have that comparison, free version versus paid version, because DaVinci Resolve, it's just DaVinci Resolve 16 or DaVinci Resolve 16 Studio. Just dropping that Studio, then which one is it, instead of it being like a completely different name. So like throwing on a light or something on there would definitely make it easier, but I could see the connotation that would be there by saying it's light. So
well, yeah, on some level I understand why we don't say it's light, because it's anything but light. And really where the difference is that the studio version takes advantage of multiple GPU cards that are in machines. So that's where you're really getting the extra performance part of it. The software itself isn't any faster. It's just the access it has to the hardware and the way it accesses the hardware. And so I think that that's where it is. Now, we try to do as best we can to explain it. We try to let people know about the build guide that we provide to show people best performance depending on what platform they're using and what products they're using and things like that. And frankly, we've even in the last couple of versions of software, starting with 15, I believe, is where we went to a 10 times speed factor, meaning that we're streamlined the software so much to work on older hardware. But yeah, you're right. Some of it's there. Now, as you say, we also have a lot of defenders that help us address some of those issues, in the market. And because as a brand, you don't really want to get into um, online battles in any sense, but we do get some assistance from the community, which is nice. And then we try to, clear up issues, like especially on our own forums. If there is any misinformation, then we definitely get in there. But I do hear what you're saying, and I understand what your point is, and frankly, thank you for defending us. But at the same time, I think we're just going to keep doing what we do, and we try to get that information out as much as possible. I mean, on the last several trade shows, including the next one, which is at IBC in Amsterdam, we've been offering some DaVinci Resolve training on our booths. And while we can't get through to a lot of people, we always find that if you get through to some people, then they can tell two friends and so on and so on. And so we're trying to do some more of that. We also put out some videos online to get people introduced to not just a new version of software, but also to just the software in general and specific tasks in the software, such as Fusion or Fairlight or the edit page, the color page, those kind of things. So we're trying. And, as I say, in my head, we have a lot more people using Resolve today than we did 10 years ago, which is great, but it's never finished. You always want to keep going. And I think also we get people that want to check it out because of the way that we model our software. It's not a subscription. It's, we don't do it that way. It's a one-time purchase, that kind of thing. If you bought a dongle in 2010, you're still getting free upgrades.
It is amazing that they enable you to get the free upgrades. And I don't think that is expressed enough, because I've had people that have gone to my website and have purchased things, and then with the 16 release, they didn't want to buy the 16 assets because they didn't want to have to buy a new license. And in an email, I just had to explain, oh, it's a free upgrade. And I know that they say it. I think a lot of people just think, oh, the free version, you can, upgrade to the other free version instead of the studio version upgrades to the studio version. So moving on from there, I had some questions with DaVinci Resolve, and I guess when I started, it was only really coloring, and then right where I was coming in, then they started to add in editing, and the editing was pretty basic, and the pitch at the time was doesn't have to go back to the editors. Like, they could make a slight adjustment and then it could continue down instead of having to do a lot of round tripping between programs. So that was kind of the pitch for the basic editing tools at the time. But now we are starting to see more and more things getting added into this program. It's becoming like a suite more than just a single program. It's getting all of these other legs that it's growing, and what it's really doing is it's picking up other elements of post-production. My question is, how do you determine, where you're going to put your resources in creating new features?
Well, it's interesting. I think this is all part of the magic of Blackmagic, is that we sort of try to attack it from, we're just going to add features in every area. And by segmenting the editing page to a cut page and the edit page, I think that was a big step. Personally, I worked in short form when I was an editor. I shot commercials. I shot and edited commercials. I wound up working in music videos, commercials, promos, those kind of things. So nothing I ever worked on was longer than 5.5 minutes. So I looked at nonlinear editing when that first started, and that's how old I am. It was before I worked only linear, and then there was nonlinear as it came, and I saw all these tools, and I'm like, these are cluttering. I only need to do certain things for the type of work that I was doing. And so that's where this cut page kind of came from. And, I get it, because it's helpful for actually a lot of different places. Even the longer form guys said, oh, that's actually a good page for me to start to do some prep work. You can get assistant editors to play with it there. So we're kind of given, in the old days, there was offline and online. And offline, you had, 1,000,000 3/4-inch tapes, and you tried to, cut the show together there. And then when you went online, you took the EDL and you went and you brought in all the selects from the mastered tapes, whatever they were, 1-inch, 2-inch, D2, whatever it was, Digibeta eventually. So that process of, working with all the material and then going in to do the finish work, it kind of lends itself to that with these two pages. But sometimes you put in a tool that works for both pages, and but at the same time, we have separate guys that work on the color stuff. So our team is so large now that we're able to segment who's going to work on what area so that we don't have to sacrifice one area for the other. And that's some of the things that you try to explain, is that, just because you see a lot of features come out in one area doesn't mean we're neglecting any of the other areas. We have different teams that work on different areas of the product. So as the product has expanded in terms of number of tabs, our team has also expanded to be able to keep up with that and beyond. And I think that is also a credit that, doesn't get a lot of play, is the fact that we have so many people working on this software. And the software itself is key to our whole company. The cameras wouldn't benefit. We wouldn't have made cameras if we didn't have the software to deal with it. And, in the Blackmagic RAW format that we just came out with, it lends itself not just to the camera, but to the whole workflow. And we're concerned with that whole workflow. Same with live production. So we have ATEM switchers, but you can do the color shading of our cameras through DaVinci-esque software that's embedded in the ATEM code. So, all these things kind of string together down the line. And so Resolve is sort of at the center of our products as it touches into a lot of the other product lines that we have. And so that's how we can do some of these things. And then, we have the team keeps growing. So we have guys that can try and draw on some of their expertise in one area that would help in another area. And that kind of collaborative workflow, which we use for Resolve, actually is collaborative workflow that we have in our own internal teams, which is cool.
That's something that I really need to make videos about, is the collaborative side of DaVinci Resolve and how that interconnects between like a team, because I really haven't gone over that much. But the second part of the question that I had for you is, how do you guys determine what features go in? Are you just kind of internally kind of figuring out what features? Do you go to different production houses and see what they have? Do you go to your forums? Because one thing that I always notice is right when you guys launch a new version of DaVinci Resolve, someone like the same day makes a thread saying feature request for whatever the next number is. So when the 16 was announced, there was a 17 thread in there of all the features that people want to see. Do you guys go to those sort of things, or is it kind of whoever speaks the loudest, they get their things added in? Is it the big production houses that get catered to? How do you figure out where you're going to, what features, or where do you get those features from?
We have a good core base of beta testers and large customers that we have been dealing with for longer than Blackmagic has owned the company. And we still have guys that worked with DaVinci prior to the sale. So those guys know those people, right? But over the last 10 years, we've developed relationships with a lot of different people that came from different areas. So we have people that were, you name the nonlinear edit system and they were using it, or the color system for that matter. So we know who we need to reach out to. But at the same time, as you said, we do come up with things that, like, no one asked for the cut page, but we came out with it. Then once we came out with it, then people asked for certain features. We use the shows to get feedback about features. Of course, we look at the forums. There is no one way, and there is no magic way to get, no pun intended, no magic way to get your feature request to the top of the list. A lot of them, they're all acknowledged. Let's just put it that way. So they're acknowledged in the sense that, we hear all of them, we get them, because not just on the forums, but we also get individuals that write to us. And I have product specialists. I manage the product specialist team in the US, and we have a couple of guys that deal exclusively with Resolve. And of course, they get feedback all the time. You get requests through our training. So we get a lot of that from a lot of different places. Now, as a company, you tend to say, well, this is interesting. We're getting, a similar request in multiple areas in different parts of the world or something like that. Maybe that is something we need to look at. But the other thing that we're also trying to do is anticipate, they're asking for that, but is that what they really need? Or is there something beyond that they need that we could provide that would then settle that? And also, I find it interesting because, look, not everybody, no one can know everything about this software. It is so vast at this point that it's scary. And sometimes people ask about a feature that's already there, and I've run into that several times. Like, well, that was in 14.5. Oh, or 12.5 rather. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. So that happens, and that's fine, and it's great when you can say, oh, by the way, that's already in there or whatever. So but yeah, there really is no one. It's similar to, like, who's this product intended for? If somebody says that about a camera, and I say, I don't know, who is it not intended for? I mean, it's anyone that has 1295 is the Pocket 4K. Does it meet the needs of a lot of the higher end guys? Yes. And does it meet the needs of young filmmakers who used to, use VHS camcorders instead back in the day? Yeah, it's them too. So it's a lot of people, but in order to do the volume that we do, we have to appeal to a large brand of people, a large number of people in a lot of different areas. And that's the key to the success of the company, in the sense that in order to keep the prices where we keep them, we need to do a lot of volume. And we do a lot of volume because we make good, cost efficient products that appeal to a wide mass. And we continue to try and do that. And it doesn't mean that we suddenly don't say, oh boy, a certain segment needs something. We can try to address those things, but overall we have a volume, and that's what we're trying to do. And Resolve Studio is the same thing. In the last update that we did online, we were introducing the Pocket 6K. Even Grant was saying, look, we gave you the free tools. We hope that you're using them and making money, but we also hope that maybe you'll upgrade to Studio to help fund the team, but also to take advantage of some of the features that you don't have access to. And is it worth $295 at some point, or buy a camera and get it? I mean, maybe so. And plus, people do buy all the, as I said earlier, the little hardware that plugs in and out of the system for using it for Resolve, in addition to all the cameras and switchers and all the other things. I rarely find someone that uses one product from Blackmagic. There's usually a few more.
Speaking about hardware, when I was initially introduced to DaVinci Resolve, on the website there was a big panel that was on there that was 5 figures, and it was definitely something that was out of my price range, but that was a big thing that was promoted on the website. And then as time went on, I started to see other panels that came out that were at different price points for different jobs, but you could really use them if you wanted to color grade. As we've seen that, we also have seen the keyboard that recently came out. My question is, would we be able to see something else that would maybe be on the visual side? Because if you look at like panels that are out there right now, at least the calibrated ones that are kind of like the go-tos, the Sonys and the Canons of the world, those are also 5-figure displays as well. And I know that you guys have some displays, but they're more rack mounted. I was curious if that would be something that could potentially be on the horizon.
Boy, I mean, for now we're making products that are used in the calibration process. So to get and we have those. It's been brought up to us. As I say, there's a lot of airplanes that we haven't landed yet. I don't even know if that one's in flight, but I think it's difficult. The monitors have been a question for umpteen years. As soon as tubes went away, the quest for this holy grail of monitoring has always been, everyone's always trying to find out where it is without having to spend a lot of money. And it's difficult because unless we got into the manufacturing of LCD panels, which I don't think we'll be doing our own, that might be difficult. But you never can tell. Although what I really think is that's going to help a lot of people are the new products, and the new SDI to HDMI 8K HDR, which should be shipping in September sometime. I think that product's going to help. And then, of course, the newer one that the SDI to DisplayPort for the Apple upcoming monitors. Then I think those tools where you can actually plug in a probe and calibrate monitors, I think will help for sure. At least get people a lot closer. I mean, because at the end of the day, all you really want is for every monitor to be wrong the same way. I don't know that any. I mean, that's the way I looked at it. Like, if everybody used the same monitor and they were all off that much, at least we all knew what we were going to. And of course, today it's so much different with what you're delivering to. Who's watching it on what? From a phone to a laptop to a whatever. And so it's difficult. But I think some of the calibration tools are being able to use our new products in the calibration process will help there. and who knows what the future will bring with us.
All right, so switching gears a little bit, once Fusion was introduced into DaVinci Resolve, I kind of ran with that on my channel, and a lot of people know me for that. One of the big things that I commonly get asked questions to from people that are coming from other programs and then coming into DaVinci Resolve, and they want to just use the Fusion within DaVinci Resolve and not, let's say, the standalone, is using audio cues. So let's say we had someone doing like a voiceover and we wanted to get some type of like kinetic text that would go with the voiceover, or if we just wanted to really build, let's say, some type of an animation that used audio cues to have different things, you know, fling around or whatever it may be. I was kind of curious if we would ever see, you know, some type of, we don't really need audio per se tools in Fusion, but just the ability to listen to audio in Fusion. Is that something that, you know, could possibly happen in the near future?
I can't comment as to what the future holds. I do know that I've heard that one before, and you know, I guess we'll wait and see how that gets addressed. I mean, you know, we obviously there's a lot of audio in the tool, but I understand what you're saying. While you're playing it in Fusion, you want to be able to listen to the audio to be able to get the cues. Um, so yeah, I don't know if we have anything brewing, and we usually don't talk about that. But who knows? You know, the fact that we launched 16 and then put 16.1 directly into beta shows you these guys are not finished.
That's funny because I was actually surprised when I seen the 16 come out, the stable version, and then right next to that, the 16.1 came out, rocking the beta tag. So I think that I'm personally going to stay in the beta world, and then just get to play with all the new features, and as well as, since I have the YouTube channel, you know, promote those new features. With all these betas, I mean, we can only hope for, you know, the features that we want to see coming in the future. But one of the big ones that I've always wanted, but over time I've kind of gotten used to it, is the ability to change around the layout of DaVinci Resolve, because like currently all we can really do is like turn off panels. So you can take the inspector and turn it off, you could turn it on, you can like make them a little longer, you can drop them down so that, you know, they push the timeline over. But outside of that, there really isn't a lot of customization where you can pull things out. If you look at like even Fusion, you can kind of change everything to make it look however it is that you want it to look. You know, it was just a way to make it work for my editing style. Like you know, you kind of just like build an editing style, and a lot of other also have the ability to be a little flexible like that and move things around. I think the only thing you can really do that with currently are like the scopes. You can pop those out of like the main DaVinci Resolve window. Now I know you can have like two monitors and stuff like that, but it's just kind of curious if there would be ever any ability to like customize stuff.
We never say never, although we also don't know when anything could change or if it will. Usually it goes through a process of, you know, who are we helping? How do we do it? But the implementation really is the key. So if we were to do a change like that, we have to make sure that if we do the implementation, that we are not disturbing the workflow of many to appease some others. But at the same time, you know, you want to do it in a way. So, you know, I don't know if we are or when or whatever, but I know that it's you know, it's feedback that helps move some of those things. And if you know, maybe because I think certain tools, you know, you want to make sure that you're not you know, tweaking too much so that you're confusing some people or whatever. But I do understand what you're saying, that, you know, maybe if it was a special menu that, you know, are you sure you want to go in here? Yes, I do.
All right, so I think this is going to be a similar question to that, but this one is actually already implemented in Fusion. In Fusion, you have the ability to look at a gallery, but I think it's actually called a library. And in there, you can see all the things that you have custom made, and you can get like a little preview of each thing. I was kind of curious if that would ever make it into DaVinci Resolve's Fusion, so we could see all the different macros that are made, or just templates that are made in there, as well as maybe even on the edit page under Fusion titles, being able to see like a preview of the different titles before actually putting them onto the timeline. Because I know like a couple of the other competitors that have like a similar tool set have the ability to see like a preview of the different titles and whatnot. I was kind of curious if something like that would ever get implemented.
Well, as far as implementing it, further, I'm not sure. I just know that, some of those tools are fairly new to, getting them in there. And I find that a lot of times we get tools in initially and then we refine over time. So, it's like anything, we watch this space, but I never feel like anything that we add is ever finished. Nothing's ever finished. And you always hope that maybe you can improve it. And again, it's feedback that helps. It's, conversations. And I think that, there's always a lot to do, but at the same time, they really do try to dig in and do as much as they can. And clearly, we just got a new update yesterday, I think.
At the DaVinci Resolve 16 announcement at NAB, there was a small segment that was talked about, but I've yet to see implemented.
And size within the same project. So that's huge. You can even change the frame rate and size within timelines that have already been made in your project, which is kind of big. So if you know what I'm talking about, it's kind of a good thing.
I was just kind of curious if that's still in the works.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that statement was made, so I can't really comment to that other than that 2 weeks from tomorrow, IBC starts. So I'll be over there, and I'll be happy to ask the guys where we are with that if it isn't already implemented.
At NAB.
It was at NAB, right?
Main event, yeah.
Sure, okay, to be for 16th.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll have to take a look. Now, I don't know, was that supposed to be in the edit page or was that in the Fusion page?
Edit page.
I mean, not Fusion, Fairlight. Oh, Fairlight. Okay, edit. All right, well, as I said, I don't know 100%, but given that we're this close to a major show, we might be able to get some more info on that.
All right. Well, I guess only time will tell on that front, but I do want to say thank you and your team for making this happen. I would also like to thank the engineers that work on DaVinci Resolve. They're doing a swell job. Can't wait to see more that they have, coming out in the future. And I hope I can talk with you again in the near future.
My pleasure. And look forward to seeing it online. And hopefully we chat again soon.
And with that being said, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. Are there any questions I should have asked? Leave them down there. Maybe I can get them answered. But yeah, on that front, my name's JR. Thank you guys for watching.